Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another session of MountainSpeak. Today we have a special session. We're calling it Spaces. This is in collaboration with Speak and Trice. Again, good friends. Uh, Thank you for being here, and thank you for the online audience as well for being here. Thank you, Anbav. Good to see you, man.
Thank you, sir, for inviting. Honor
Yeah,
for me.
sure thing. Yeah. Today, we have a very interesting guest. I usually have very interesting guests, but today it's a special, really special. We have Major Sunil Shetty, Sena Medal, and currently an entrepreneur with us. And right before this session, we were having chat about what has happened and stuff like that. And I find there are a lot of similarities. Both of us come from a sort of Fauji background. Our dads have served in the Indian Air Force. Uh, he went into army and served there, and I came into academics, which is almost like a war zone, man. It's almost like a war zone. Every day we have got battles and fights and stuff like that. But we'll talk more about it later. Thank you very much, Major Sunil, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We just met a few weeks back and we instantly hit off and we said we need to take this discussion and conversation forward. And he has very kindly agreed. Lives all the way in Sanipuri, but travel down and we're meeting in person here. So the first thing as a background, what I just told you, what we are talking about are interesting life trajectories and what lessons can we draw from them. Right? A lot of students are going to join in, but others also have, I think, curiosity to know as to what makes, as of now, a successful entrepreneur. And being a Fauji, how does it get stuff like that. So the first, I think the talking point is mostly in terms of tell us where you are now, and then we'll walk backwards and see how did you come to this place.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And as I always say, connecting students always make you feel younger. So thank you for that. Thank you for Speak and MountainSpeak and Trice for the opportunity. So where am I currently? Well, I'm currently the founder of MyStartupTv, an exclusive media platform for startups, of startups. And when I say startup, it's not just the founders or the startup, it's the startup community, which is stakeholders, enablers, be it incubators, VCs, angel investors. So enablers, it's a platform. The whole idea of starting this was to have a single platform where it would become like a watering hole for all of them to come and get what they need. So what the startup need, they need to connect with, mentors, connect with investors. What are the investors looking for? Startups to explore if they can invest into. Enablers looking at bringing various partners to work with. So that's the whole. That's how MyStartupTv was born. It started as an online TV channel. We added going forward. Then we quickly realized that there was a need for an e-magazine. We added an e-magazine and podcast. So quickly, I'll just take a couple of minutes more to just elaborate on what we do. Though we are an online channel across social media, but the DNA is of a mainstream media, which is we broadcast 24/7 across all social media. We do daily news bulletins like the news channel, but everything that we do as a content is around startup, right? So we have a in studio news that goes out. We have panel discussions again around startups. We have various programs. So programs are like founder talk, where founders come and talk about not about the journey, but about the company or a product or a service. Then we have entrepreneur show. We have womenpreneur show. We have soldierpreneur show. Soldiers who turn entrepreneurs. We have MSME show. That's where the Cobbler story fits in, right? What you're talking about, the million
vendor
story. So that's a MSME show. Like that, we have numerous shows. We also do reports on various, like there was a report on India crossing 5 billion in transactions.
Yeah, I saw that on your website.
Yeah, so we did a report on that. So we would do reports like that. We also would do features on certain, maybe a product or a company. So everything that we would see in a mainstream media is what we do, but online, right? So this is for the ecosystem on the whole. Then the magazine, which is called My Startup Life, which is an e-magazine for now, about 10,000 subscribers. It is for the Gen Z. Okay. So how do I talk to them about Bitcoin, blockchain, metaverse in a digital form, so they easy to digest, right? Easy to understand. So the magazine is aimed at Gen Z, but we found it was becoming more and more popular with everybody else, the millennials and everybody else, right? And the podcast. Podcast is for people on the go, but podcast is primarily in Hindi as of now, and we would also have English podcast. Podcast is available over 50 different platforms: Spotify, Google Podcast, all of them. E-magazine goes through emailers for subscribers, and our TV channel gets traffic from about 48 to 50 countries, give and take, from different parts of the world. We have got the few countries that have reached out to us asking us if we could launch the same thing there. Oh, and US is one of them. Our second highest traffic comes from US. So yeah, that's in just as
that's and so I was going through your bio. So this is in 2.5 years, is it?
Yes.
2.5 years.
With 2 years of lockdown.
Oh my God. Lockdown has been, you have been really productive in lockdown that way.
So what we started off, I still remember when we started in August of 2019, and we would reach out to entrepreneurs and say, interview over Zoom. And they're like, why Zoom?
Yeah,
why can't you come with a camera and do it? Not realizing it costs you money, right?
Yeah.
But then we were saying, please see the mainstream media.
Correct.
They also do it through Skype.
Correct.
But they would not understand it. They would not. So some of them were happy to come on the channel, but many of them would say no to it. And then this is all the points I would like to touch upon for everyone as they say, any media is good media, right? So many of the entrepreneurs think only if Times Now or Republic or the of the world can cover you, or Times of India or the Business Times covers you. It is coverage. What they don't understand is any coverage, especially in the digital world, any coverage
is good coverage.
Even if tomorrow a school kid calls up and says, like my son does a YouTube channel and a podcast, right? If he calls up and says, you know what, I want to do an interview with you, just say yes. Yes. Because what you're doing is you're leaving a digital footprint of yours, which is discoverable out there in the space. And that is what is important today. The more dots you have as your footprint, the faster and easier to be located on ground. When somebody Googles you out, you're there. So that we used to have the challenge, but thanks to lockdown. Yes,
I'm so glad somebody is saying that.
Thanks to lockdown, because what happened is everybody was on Zoom.
Correct.
So it was easier to tell them, why did you come over on our channel? So people started accepting it as a way of getting interviewed, right? So we have interviewed over 700 entrepreneurs so far. I think I can claim this, that we are world's biggest library of content on startup as on startups. Nobody else has. You can check out the YouTube, you can check out anywhere. We have over 1,000 content out, and our content is not 30 seconds content. Yeah. We took a very conscious decision not to be an influencer model, which is, hey, I'm Sunil Shetty, come and see this. We didn't want that. We wanted to have seriousness to it, because when I bring and this is what we do, when we invite entrepreneurs, we tell them it's a business channel. Either come in a tie suit, open collar, or in your branded T-shirt with collar. You can't come on the channel without any of these, because if you are not serious about your brand, we are. So we have kept certain things very clear, that it is a business channel like the mainstream media, just that we are online.
Absolutely. I think that makes tremendous sense. In fact, I'm so glad that you brought up this idea about serious journalism and serious talk, because what we are seeing is that 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and we have the idea of spaces that we're doing right now. It came from a discussion I had with Subir and Naveen, who's going to join us soon, where we said we should have places where we could, like what you called as a watering hole. I know a lot of people are going to like that explanation. But there must be a place where people could come and sit and talk and discuss stuff at length. So we are in that. I'm also a fan of this long form where we say, let us sit and talk. And I know a lot of people may not have time to watch it, but that's okay. And we should still document stories which are not ephemeral in that sense, but which are more in depth. And I'm glad that even in digital, you're planning to have stories which are in depth and not just hi.
30 seconds and then it's done.
Yeah.
Even before you know what it is. So okay, that has its own space.
Yeah, it has its own space.
Its own space. Not that you can write it off. But then the reality is that when you talk about business, it's a serious thing, right? So that's why one of the reasons why I am against these 3 minute pitches at pitching events, right? So I always wonder why, though I've been myself part of some of the pitching sessions, but then I always feel bad for the entrepreneur that he or she has to, compress
Distill
all that
everything into
vision
three.
into the 30 seconds and put it out. I can understand that the VCs or the angel investors don't have time to listen to your, kahani for 1 hour. But then, if there was a way to do it, it'll be better than that. So that's where MyStartupTv has been instrumental in actually connecting over a dozen startups with angel investors. Yeah, so people connected with us, talked to us, and asked us, "Oh, we would like to go through this. Do you have more information?" And that inspired us to actually change the format.
Okay.
We used to just put the video content. Then we realized that yes, most of the angel investors would not want to, directly reach out to the startup because for various reasons.
Right.
So we said, what can we do? Can we add some more information about the startup so the investors or mentors can scroll through, read a little bit more, and then probably make the choice as to whether they want to connect with them. So our new upgraded website would have all that. So when we feature a startup, we would have those information about the startup. So it gives them, apart from the interview, gives them a little more.
I think that's really required right now. And Naveen, who is the founder of Trice, the platform, he always has this idea that, boss, I've worked hard on this startup, and now give me 30 seconds, give me one slide, and then, boss, I've given my life to it, and you want me to talk about it in 30 seconds. But in case, in some places, of course, the VCs may not have time. I just wanted to take you back again and say, so this is where you are right now, but how did you reach here and what all? Let's start with the education perhaps, and then we can build that story forward.
I definitely don't want to go to my schooling. My marks are as good as which.
So that itself is a good story. That marks, though they are good to have, but it's okay.
So I have used this many times. I've tried to tell my son about the marks that I got in 10th grade. So I've told him this, and my wife was always like, "What's the idea here?" Because wife comes from a topper. She's been topper all through. She's one of the 5th women cardiac surgeons in India, and she's the first cardiac professor, cardiothoracic professor, surgeon from Telangana.
Okay.
So I married a girl who was like much more educated than me and much more powerful in all tick boxes. So whenever I said this to my son, I can see on his face, and I've shared this everywhere. Okay, I'll just ask you this question. What do you think would be my marks in 10th class, in 10th grade?
Did you go to which?
I went to KV, Kendra Vidyalaya.
Which Kendra Vidyalaya was
Begum K.
Okay.
And nothing to do by school. My school did everything to ensure I got the best marks. With all due respect to all my gurus, my teachers, they did their best. It was I who was at fault. So my marks are no reflection of my school and my college.
Let me take a guess. 47.
Okay, what next? Another one.
Let others give a number. 50.
Okay, I'll not let you do that because you'll never come. 36.5. Okay, and I failed my maths, and I got 17 in my maths, and that's why I keep saying that 17 ka ankara has a connect with me because my wife is born on 17th March. So I said that's why I got 17. Anyway, that's kind of I keep telling my wife, and I was lucky that those days if you fail one subject you could pass. Okay.
As long as the overall was above 36.
Oh, 36 was the
35.
36. I got 0.5. So now 36.5. And when I finished my master's in UK, I was in the top distinction, right? How does that happen? Okay. And I always tell my son that it's not because you're not capable of it. It's just that you don't apply yourself to it. Because मुझे पता था कि मेरा distraction was cricket खेलना. 86. 83 में World Cup. Everybody wants to play World Cup. I'm thinking I'll become a Sunil Shetty used to be my favorite, and that think I want to become the next Sunil Shetty, not wear a helmet while you're playing, because you're trying to do that with your the one you connect with. And I spent all my class 10th. I still remember exam से एक हफ्ता पहले मुझे याद है कि exam करना और पढ़ाई करना. So those days you had to directly write a final exam. There was not that installment system. Right? So directly exam लिखना है. And I was blank. I had no idea what I was doing. मुझे तो ये भी नहीं पता कि 17 मार्क भी कैसे दे दिया उसने. But anyway, so when I did that, now this is very important that I want to share why I said this. When I applied for intermediate, I think the college is no more. It used to be in Panjagutta, called Chanakya Junior College.
Okay.
Chanakya Junior College in Panjagutta. And with great difficulty, the principal accepted my application because 36.5 mein kaun dega? And I still remember my dad used some kind of connection to get me there. So I went to principal bulaya and then he said, in Telugu, yes. Ye subject ka wala. So I told him, maths, physics, chemistry. He bloody stabbed me in front of my dad. He said, you've got only 17 in maths. And trust me, I was not joking with him. Okay.
I really wanted to do PCM.
I wanted to do that because I wanted to prove, and I'll tell you why I've been doing this all my life. Okay. I wanted to take maths because I wanted to prove that 17 I got, not because that was what my intellect was. It's just that I didn't apply. And I wanted to go back and correct it. And I've done all my life, corrected my mistakes or my failures. Wherever I failed, I'll share that. So he didn't give me, obviously, he wouldn't have given me. I got BPC. And I ensured that by the time I don't know how many of you are for 88 batch intermediate. Those days, getting first division was like newspaper mein aata tha, right? So like list aata tha ki first division aaya hai types, right? Deccan Chronicle is big thing. And I remember not sleeping that night. And because I had some friends, so they called up and he said, "Oh, you're in first division." Okay. And my dad couldn't believe it. This guy jumps from 36.5 to first division, right? I think I got 70%. And then I did then I went to PG College, Secunderabad. Again, very difficult to get in that time also with 70% because again, wo competition more tight ho gaya. But by the time I reached to 70, others went to 80, right? So finally, a cut off got into that. And I did NCC 3 years.
Okay.
In spite of doing NCC 3 years, where second year, because I was preparing for RD parade, right? Again, a mistake going back and correcting here into the lesson. So RD parade was like whole year you had to be there. You had to do about 10 camps.
Correct.
So as a science student, you're missing on all practicals. You're missing out on everything, right? In spite of that, so I went to Rajpath, did the march there in the contingent as part of airwing NCC, and then came back, wrote the exam, did the final, aggregate, got 60% plus, but second year was low because it pulled my percentage down in practical because I was not there most of the time. Here was the second thing as an experience. On Rajpath, see in my life, very few times I had self-doubt. Very few times. And I have lived with those. So Rajpath, you get a chance to lead the contingent.
Correct.
And I had one of the best drills, right? Because my father had led, when he was in NCC, he led the contingent, and that's in parade grounds here, right? So I always wanted to do that for my dad, right? So for some reason, I hesitated to say that I will take part in the competition.
You didn't volunteer.
I didn't volunteer. Okay, and I don't know why, but I didn't. There was this self-doubt.
Like you're good enough or not.
Yes, and I didn't get it. I did ask. Obviously, अगर नहीं पूछोगे तो नहीं देगा. That's why I always say, maximum क्या होगा ना कर देगा बंदा. जाके पूछो, go and ask. The worst that can happen is they will say no. Beyond that, nothing. Why should you hold back? Go and ask. So this is for the guys. Go and ask the girl. Maximum lie करेगी ना.
It could be other way around.
Other way around also आजकल, yes. So, and I'll tell you how I corrected that. So on Rajpath, we did the march. I was in the first file, so you still get to be in the front. But trust me, it kept pricking me.
You should have been leading.
That was in 88. That I should have at least tried it, right? I got a redemption, 50% redemption, 50% abhi hoga, which I'm trying to. So 50% redemption was when I joined the army and my unit was in Faizabad. Opportunity came for my unit battalion to march for 26 January in Allahabad.
Which unit was this?
12
You volunteered.
And I did it. And the day I passed through the because I saw you calling the sword.
Correct.
When I did that, when I passed by, for me, 50% redemption was done. Because by 50%, Rajpath is still there. And I will do it because ex-serviceman का contingent जाता है. Okay, so I told one of my senior officers, sir, next time जब भी होगा, because आजकल बंद कर दिया उन्होंने. So जो भी होगा, I want to be there. So that is how I have, done in my life. If somewhere I failed, couldn't do something, I have tried to find a way to go back and redeem myself. Because if you don't do that, you'll always kind of think about it. It keeps pricking you, right? So that was college degree. And
just to have, just to not summarize, but to get one gem out of it is, and I keep saying it, if you don't ask it, you don't get it. You will have to ask for it. I mean, you'll have to stand up, volunteer, raise your hand.
And be prepared. The worst that will happen is no.
Yeah.
Uske upar aur kuch nahi hai.
And do better next time.
Yeah.
I mean, you get one no, that doesn't mean that it is not going to come next time.
Yeah.
You do something else and then again raise your hand and say, I'm going to do it. Stand. I think that's very important. And just there, I was just listening to a podcast this morning. He says, you stand where you sit. And I was reflecting on it. It is also about the other thing we're talking about, which is about experiences and what moments you are part of. You have to be part of moments to be able to capture that opportunity as well. If you are just sitting at your place doing the basic, you will never get those opportunities.
Yes.
And then you can't even raise your hand.
Yeah.
You can't even raise your hand.
I mean, you didn't even give yourself the chance. So
it's wonderful.
That was my degree.
And then you joined.
No, then again, so this is one thing. The other side of me has been, if I find something interesting, I want to give myself a shot there, right? So I was about to finish my graduation 91 when I started seeing people who were doing all these courses, foreign language courses. So what time is civil hota tha?
Correct.
Right?
Still
Now
there.
it changed. Yeah. So I enrolled there to learn Russian. Now why Russian? Because I always thought that I will become a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And I heard Rakesh Sharma, Space May, in one of the interviews, he had said that if they had known Russian before, it would have been faster to learn. I said, okay, मुझे fighter pilot बनना ही है, space में जाना ही है, तो मैं पहले Russian सीख लेता हूँ. See, that is the kind of thought you should have, right? So I have given answer myself कि मैं तो Air Force में join होगा, fighter pilot बनूंगा, space में भी जाऊंगा, तो Russian में पहले सीख लेता हूँ. This is doable here, right? So I joined CFIL, started learning Russian, and the encouragement was that there was a Russian teacher, young looking, so काफी inspiring, and we kept going, not miss any class. But then that's the time when journalism opening हुआ, so I got into Osmania University for journalism, right?
This is after your graduation.
After graduation.
Okay, you started your PG.
So 92 was PG I had started, and I was doing Russian. So सुबह ये करता था, शाम में Russian, and that's where I appeared for my exam and I got through SSB, and then choice was the second thing, right? The third rather. The choice was, do I finish my graduation or join the army, right? One step back. I was playing for while I was doing my second year. I used to play for a league, district league cricket, right? So I was opening batsman. I used to play for that. So choice was Sunday के दिन match होता था और Sunday के दिन NCC का parade हो रहा है. And my dad said, "Beta, you have to decide, right?" So I still remember कि I came that day, did my parade, missed my toss से पहले नहीं पहुंचे, तो उन्होंने उसमें डाल दिया reserve में. So I said, "यार life में यही होगा."
And this is very common. So we have also a cricket place, and people don't turn up at 6:30. उसको batting नहीं मिलेगा, कम से कम opening तो नहीं मिलेगा.
So I said, life is going to do this to you. If you don't take a call, if you come after the toss, you'll end up being on the reserve. So I said, you know what? Here's a call. I had a kit. I used to go to Gymkhana also. Kit liya, I still remember. This was 89. I just threw it on the shelf paper.
Okay.
And I didn't see it till about 2001. I didn't touch it. I just threw it. So I have been doing this in my life. The day I decide, it's closed chapter. Done. Because you cannot get stuck with that forever. So coming back to here. So now again the same thing, ये करूँ कि ये करूँ. I said, you know what? वो join करता हूँ. ये तो मैं आके भी complete कर लूँगा. Right? So
journalism.
हाँ.
Journalism you could do later.
I could. So what I had done was, again as a student, right? whenever you, so this is what I see when they want to do students, so case study होगा या thesis लिखना होता है, वो सबसे easy होता है library में जाओ लेके आओ और छाप दो. That's the
now it has become even more. You don't have to go to library.
Yeah.
Google से छाप लिया सीधा.
So that's a wrong thing to do. Like मैंने जब journalism किया तो I did my thesis was on 1971 war.
Okay.
My dad had got all the clippings from 71, so I said might as well use this. So मैंने उसके पूरा album बना के उसको मतलब presented. So before I joined the army, I had completed all the basics that required. Only thing I had to do was write an exam, right? So there I went and joined the army. And जब army खत्म हुआ, तो first holiday जो मैंने लिया, वो मैंने लिया to come back and write the exam.
Okay, your journalism exam.
I came back and wrote my exam and finished. That was with my.
So this is right after your training then.
No, not after the training. So
After
I got commissioned 94,
Correct.
95, 97 में आके. मतलब because I was in Burma and all that.
अच्छा.
So udhar after the thing, then I went to IOS. Then I said, okay, I timed myself in such a way that I was for exams. I was here and I took the exams with my. So I finished that. Now how did that help me? When I left the army and came out, I was ready to go to journalism again.
Yeah, then you had some backup. Or,
I was very clear.
Very clear.
मुझे ये था कि there are only two things that give me rush. One is the gun, the other is the camera. So
Camera,
I wanted
yeah.
to go back to the not in front of the camera, behind the camera. So yeah, so joined the army. Army was again quite a adventurous journey. My first posting was on Manipur, and most of my time was on India, Burma border, Myanmar border, and that is where I did. I volunteered for an operation. We'll keep that for another day. It's a long story, but I
for CIA operations.
CIA operations, and that is where I ended up getting the President Medal for gallantry, Sena Medal. So that was there, and then and as luck would have it, so again, this is something that we can't predict. Like when you're joining the army, so I'm from the short service, right? So a day before, one of the instructors came and said, okay, how many of you opt for permanent commission after 5 years? I remember मेरा हाथ ऊपर है, कोई वो किसी ने हाथ नहीं उठाया. And guess what? I was the first one to leave after 6 years, right? And this is after Sena Medal,
Yeah.
right? And
Actually,
that is,
you would have been a very nice trajectory by that time. I mean, yeah.
God willing, agar hota to it would have been good, right? So this is where the other learning comes in, right? So I got injured while in the army, and it was a training exercise injury, but I was downgraded as we have the shape on category. And this incident where my unit, which asked me to move in the peak of the Kargil war, so I discharged myself from the hospital. I went straight to my unit in Punch. And I had still had the plaster on. My senior said, you know what, you got to go to another unit because we transport you can't be here. And in spite of my all protests that no, I'm here, I want to be here, I was sent to another unit. And I thought, damn, I never wanted to be in this situation where right?
Plaster on
And then, because I didn't join the army, as I said, I want to be in the thick of the action, not away from the action. So I took a call. I need to leave army. Okay, and as I said, when I take a call, close. So
but 7 years.
Close. So I said I'm leaving, and I still remember 2000 New Year ushering in on the border, DC Punjab border, and I was thinking, and I said, wow, it is possible that this injury will not get upgraded, which means I will keep moving away. So as a leader in the army, you got to be in the front doing everything in the infantry what your soldier is doing, right? I can't ask my soldier because I've got a injury, so bhai aap mera aadha weight carry karo. You lose your respect from your soldiers, and I would never have that, right? Today also when I go with my guys, it's not that I'm the founder, so I will not carry the tripod. What they do, I do, because they would respect me only if I'm ready to dirty my hands, right? So that's what I always say as a leader, are you ready to do that? It doesn't matter how big is your company, how many people work for you. Again, I'll touch that in Afghanistan. Right? So I closed the chapter, came out of the army. I used that first 1 year period to assemble computers in CTC.
Yeah.
Again, an experience. I'll touch that. So, किसी ने बताया कि कंप्यूटर बहुत बिक रहा है, ये सही टाइम है.
We have Sanjay, who was actually with HCL. He also sold not the assembled ones, but the actual ones.
हमने आपके SCL भी बेचे. So 2001 I got married. The girl I wanted to. Okay, my wife is from Punjab and I am from Bangalore, down south. Okay,
But you have lived in Hyderabad most of your life.
Yes. Yeah, and
Did
she also comes from the armed forces.
Okay.
So anyway, so I was lucky there to find a girl who was ready to. So when I got married, I think I had about 50,000 rupees in my.
That's a lot.
Yeah, शादी करना, you know. I still remember my wife's one book for surgery.
Oh, yeah.
25,000 rupees. You know? So anyway, so 1 year I did the assemble computers. And I learned everything from how to assemble.
I'm just trying to put it in perspective. This is after you have served the nation for 6 years.
6 years.
Where
you come in, everybody's saluting you. You are a class 1 guest officer. You can sign.
And then you come out and then you start.
You're back to square one. Right?
You're selling door to door, almost like office to office.
Yeah. I had a very bad experience. Somebody asked me to stand there. Okay. And trust me, that ego ko solo karna. You know, I was guys like you were saluting me sometime back. I'm a class 1 guest officer. I'm a gallantry out winner, and you asked me to stand there, right? And I said, okay, you know what? I'm in a role of a salesperson. I'm here to sell something. I'll do that and go. So anyway, those things happen in life. You know, sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down.
I would say,
how do you manage this?
It is still up. It is still up that you change your role, and you could still adapt to it, even when you had served in. I mean, if you are a Saudi officer, there is a certain respect that you would get both from civilians as well as your own men in rank. But then you come out and you are salesperson, and then you have a new role, you have a new responsibility, and that adaptability, I think it's a great thing.
It is, and you have to do that. I remember going to BSNL office and saying, Madam, you know, my line is not working, and it's very important that this line has to be connected because my parents are here and I'm elsewhere. So talk. Support your army officer. We are on the bed. This is long back. Today, though, people don't talk to today. Respect you get from from our own people for whom you fight, right? But then, so I sold it for 1 year, and then my wife said, you know what? Why did you leave on? You wanted to be a journalist, right? And you didn't want to do this. So why are you doing this? And I told my wife, listen, if I have to do it, I can't do it in India because I don't want to do it in India. Or Makkah of journalism is London. That's where I want to go. Or those days, I don't know how many of you know this. Education fair में लाठी चार्ज होता था. लाठी चार्ज. You couldn't go like this the way it used to, right? Taj Krishna में जाके पूछोगे तो, because under education fair हो रहा है, बाप भाई लगा है, no, 2 किलोमीटर का. So I said that is one, and second is money. It will going to cost me about, I think it was about 25,000 pounds or 30,000 pounds. You know, I said that kind of money, where do you get it? So that's where I married a lady who was, you know, she's a Khalsa, she's sick. So, you know, the panga taker, right? He said, come, let's go. So she pulled us strings, the education fair was going on. Taj mein hum log piche se gaye under entry somehow. So we went and met all those guys, and, you know, I said, okay, 5 colleges picked up. And my wife was about to go to London to do her masters. So there's a locum uske liye. So she dropped that. She rather took my papers and landed there. And I know her dad paid for the ticket because she said she's going for locum. She didn't go for locum, and she went, delivered all my applications, because those days you had to apply the application then about. So then the university it says, so I got from 3 universities, but the challenge was now, where do you get money from? So then started 2 months of going to Allahabad Bank and talking to many of them. Finally, after 2 months, we got the loan. He said, I'm giving you because your wife is a doctor, and तभी वही उसी से pay हो पाएगा. I said, okay, ठीक है. अब आ गया visa का बारी, ठीक है. Then visa का जब time आया तो चेन्नई जाना पड़ता था. चेन्नई में you had to pay 400 rupees for a person to stand in the queue at night. Okay. So next day morning, if you're lucky, you go and stand, get the spot. So we paid somebody, stood there, नहीं मिला, 3 दिन try किया. I remember my birthday was on the line. खत्म हो गया, नहीं हुआ. So my wife said, to hell with this, let's go back. She came back to Hyderabad. She again pulled some strings. I don't know what she does. She's done some magic. She found education counselors. So we found one of them. I remember in Begumpet. Went to them, put all the files. He said, "Okay, come to Chennai again." After a ticket from Karidega, again we went by train. Luckily got it. And I remember the visa lady looked at it and said, "How will you pay this? Fee?" And I said, "I'll pay it." And she looked at it and said,
I'm like,
"Thappa mara." To me, it looked like, like
she's rejecting it.
no, she's was stamp mere gaal pe laga, and she was like another economic migrant who's going to go and sell vegetables. I landed up in London.
But she did actually give you.
No, visa to mil gaya.
Well, my US visa was rejected. He said, how would you fund it?
वो मेरे ख्याल से मेरी वाइफ डॉक्टर थी ना, तो मैंने सोचा कि पे कर देगी किसी तरह, ये वो पैसे करेगी. So anyway, I landed up in London, and first thing in my mind was कि मैं वेजिटेबल के दुकान पे नहीं जाऊंगा, मैं पेट्रोल स्टेशन पे काम नहीं करूंगा.
दो चीजें क्लियर है.
चाहे जो भी हो जाए, राइट? मैं ये दो काम नहीं करूंगा. ठीक है? Because most of the students are there. So I still remember कि जिस दिन मैं वहाँ पहुंचा कि वो roommate, we were sharing a room, and everybody was like पेट्रोल पंप पे आ जा, पेट्रोल पंप पे नहीं, मतलब बाकी सब. So anyway, I was very serious that I had gone there for a reason, and I wanted to finish my degree and then out. Right? I wanted to do something else, and I did masters in international journalism, and I was specializing in conflict reporting. So
that's again. So is it because of your Fauji background?
Fauji background. Fauji, you understand better, right? So fast forward, I got a job into a. This is where the computer, the hardware. So I applied for there used to be a brand called CompuWorld. Okay, I Computer World, London. So I joined them. Straight first 3 months, I was the topper in London was selling 8 systems a month. First month I started with 12, went on to 20
because you are sold in India.
Sold in India and inside out, right? So हमें assemble किया हुआ है. So when somebody would come, configuration बताना शुरू कर देते. See, experience. How do you connect? What I told you. You gain experience, there are dots. So how do you connect the dots of experience and make sense of it? I don't know what. I never thought of it. Remember, you were asking me, do you think of it? No, you don't. But when you have an experience, do you connect them to make sense of it? So what I sold here for 1 year paid me off for my expenses in London for 3 months. Uske baad I bashed up somebody because he called me, you are the Pakistani, he called me something, and I couldn't take it from Pakistani as a 4G. I bashed him up. And obviously, I was fired from the job, and then I joined the B&Q, right? And again, my 4G experience, and learned everything there, how the aisles work. So it helped me when I launched my own stores in Hyderabad. It was a grocery stores. So not very many know. I was the first one to launch grocery stores inside gated community, and the first store was in Aparna. That time, all this gated community, Kumpal. In fact, they used to have no space dedicated for grocery stores. This was in 2008. So
you got some good ideas here.
So that's how So when I was about to finish my master's degree, I happened to run into an advertisement in the college which said, Neon's grocery for £1,200, and I saw, okay, great, let me put a paper for it. So I presented a paper which was to do a documentary on rebuilding Afghan army, challenges of rebuilding Afghan army. So I put it up, and so they would give $1,200 for 6 students. So they saw my thing and they said, you know what, are you ready to go to Afghanistan? I said, yes. They said, okay, we'll give you 600. Half of it. First, in the history of Neon's grocery, first time they gave half of it to one student. So I took that. So I was supposed to go for 7 days to Afghanistan to do this documentary. So I took this, took a visa from UK.
So this is 2000 from London to Afghanistan.
Kabul to Afghanistan. So I got into a flight and landed in Kabul, stayed in Gurdwara. And Gurdwara pani nahi hota tha, so I'll just take a minute to share. So Gurdwara pani nahi hota tha because it was all bombed. So I used to go to there was a 5-star hotel which was also bombed, 2002. And they used to have a toilet washroom in the lobby area. So I used to go every day morning, use that washroom, and walk yourself up, clean, and change over. तो security guard देखता था कि 7 दिन वो देखता रहा कि बंदा आता है ऐसे Jata groomed up because I had to do interviews, right? So I would go and so what I did was $600 plus 200 I saved a pound and 200 I saved from my work there. So 800 pounds I gave $200 to the local translator and remaining for stay and travel. और 7 दिन हमने interview किया. And last day he said, there is a NGO, maybe you should go and meet the US NGO, which is into media.
Okay.
And then, when the interview finished, John West, who changed my course of life, he said, would you like to pick up a project here? Where is Afghanistan? I said, what is it? We are launching media here. Okay, and we want to train, create a media map for Afghanistan. I said, great, let's do it. And he said, but you have to write your exam. And then I said, the day I finish my last paper, I'm here. Right? So I went to London, wrote my exam. Mere sare class mein, are you crazy? You get PR if you stay, you can stay for 2 more years and you can look for other things. I said, you know what? 2 things. I'm getting a real life experience there. And I don't think I would ever get an opportunity to repay my loan. Okay. Right? So I took the next flight. Last exam, took my flight. I didn't even come home. I straight went to Delhi to Kabul. And I met my parents after 2 years, or my wife after 2 years after that. Because 1 year idhar ho gaya, 1 year udhar. Okay. So then I went to Kabul, and that's it. Kabul. And so 7 days trip turned out to be 14 years in Afghanistan. So I went to Afghanistan in 2002. I came out in 2016.
14 years in Afghanistan. That's, you will be amongst the longest serving foreign nationals.
Foreign nationals and
surviving, I would say. Surviving foreign nationals to come out of Kabul. So what was your experience there in Kabul? It's a difficult place. There are no facilities. Perhaps language would be a barrier. Did you learn Pashto?
Yes. No, I learned Farsi, which was very close to. So again, John West was a big motivation.
Inspiration. John West?
Yeah. So John West is an ex-BBC journalist, producer, and he was a country director on Internews, which is a media NGO funded by the US government. They helped to set up media, FM radio stations, print, all that. So John West was country director, and he would speak fluent English, Dari. Like any other Britisher who would go there, learn the culture. And every time I would hear him speak Dari, I would like, aise karna. So, jo bhi Dari seekh raha, But then I couldn't do formal classes. But then I learned Dari from the street.
Okay.
कि हम जिससे भी बात कर रहे taxi driver इससे उसे करते came to a point where I would converse. Eventually, when I left Afghanistan, my staff. So I turned entrepreneur from journalist. Again, I'll come back to that. I turned entrepreneur from a journalist, content reporter in Afghanistan, where I had about 600 plus staff. And then I would converse with them in Farsi. So yeah, learn the local language. So challenges are. So when I went to Afghanistan, I went in as to be a project manager on this media project. As part of the project, we were to go around Afghanistan looking at what's happening in the media space. And I traveled to all the 4 directions. I went up north to Kunduz, on the west to Herat, down south Kandahar, Jalalabad on the west, east, all of that, and prepared that. And it was a 6 months project. So I learned my first experience of project management. Right? Those days there was no degree called project management. Right? So हमने hands-on सीखा कि project management कैसा होता है. But also did a lot of mistakes. And John West was, really annoyed with me in many things because I was not able to deliver on things that was required. Because I was a journalist. I was not a management guy. No MBA to my name, right? And to his credit, I learned that from him, that he put up with me. First 2 months, he realized that I was not the guy for this project. Right? But what he did was he hired another person
for the project
part. And I would do the outdoor, go around doing the outdoor work, and this lady would do she was again an Indian national. She would do the writing part and everything else. And that I took in my, as a, mantra in mind. As a leader, when I see somebody cannot perform, I need to give that person the chance. Even if it means I need to create an extra resource.
Yeah, so you'll have to enable that person, whatever it takes.
Because it was easy for John West to fire me.
Correct.
Right? and he didn't. And so that was one. Then immediately I moved on to another project, which was setting up the first women-owned operated FM radio station
In Afghanistan.
in Kabul. No, in Herat.
In Herat.
So that was funded by a Canadian NGO. So did that. That was a good experience. Again, redemption. कि यहाँ गड़बड़ किया है, वो सबको इधर डालना है और सीखना है, right? So that completed successfully. As part of the same project, also launched the e-magazine. Fortnightly magazine that connects to my startup life fortnightly magazine. Now, right? So learned how it is done, right? How you build a team, all of that, and then finished that project. And then I was hired by a French NGO, again a media NGO, to launch a monitoring project. Okay, it was called media monitoring project because first presidential election was coming in. Okay, right? So I was running a team of 40 people working 24/7. You know, and monitoring all the.
So this is the media in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan, media in Afghanistan,
Media.
as to what they were talking about
Right.
Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
So did that project successfully, and learned there how to handle a bigger team. And I believe that somehow the stars were getting me ready to do bigger things, right? And I run into another Indian friends who come up with the idea of launching a media event management company. So we all like, great, let's launch this. So we launched a company called Third Eye in Afghanistan.
An event management.
Event management. अब लाएंगे किसको? Bollywood stars. Oh, ठीक है. तो हमने क्या किया? सोनू निगम, सुनील शेट्टी, my namesake, and Johnny Walker. इन सबको sign up कर दिया. But those two guys, Johnny Lever.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Johnny Walker is closer.
So Johnny Lever.
Johnny Walker is close enough.
Yeah. So we got Sonu Nigam to the concert.
Oh.
I was part of the event को organize करना, right? So हमने वो stage वेज बनाया, वहाँ dance वांस हो रहा था. In the Kabul stadium, there were about 5,000 to 7,000 people, women, girls, all dancing to Sonu Nigam. And as luck would have it, the whole stage collapsed. Just towards the end of 30 minutes before the program would finish, because all these guys got on top. जोश में ना.
This is like an Indian barat. No, but
हाँ, सब वही हुआ, सब ऊपर चढ़ गए, वो collapse हो गया. And that ended up with us. So all the sponsors to the event said you have to refund all the money back because
bad incident.
नहीं, because event complete नहीं हुआ. And government ने case कर दिया. So Supreme Court के पास जाना पड़ता था हर रोज कि क्या हुआ. You know, luckily nobody died. And I want to make a mention of Samir Basim. For the first time in my life, I don't know how and when will I repay him. First time in my life, I actually knowingly, cheated someone. Right? I knew that I didn't have money to pay. He was he was a GSA for Indian Airlines. I needed tickets to send these people out, and we needed $20,000. I didn't have money. I called up Samir and said, Samir, I need the tickets, and I'll pay you tomorrow because sponsor ka paisa aa jayega. I knew the sponsors were not paying. I lied to him. But I had to get these guys out.
Yeah,
so whenever Sonu Nigam and his troupe, we put them on the thing and then send them out. I paid him almost after about a year, the whole money. But I remember that I knew that I did not have the money, but I lied to him. That pricks me even today, but I don't know how to redeem that. Someday I will. So the whole thing collapsed. Sonu Nigam went back. And I remember next day I was at the Kabul stadium. All these vendors were there. We had to pay them, right? And one of them was carrying a AK-47. He puts it to my chest and he says, "Money now or I will shoot." So if you want to shoot and if you get money, do it. I said, "I will not leave Afghanistan till I pay you money, but you have to give me time." And one of my co-founders was trying to escape. They caught him at the airport. They got him back, and I said, "Guy, you can't do that. You can't run away." I was very clear. I remember. I called up my wife that night and I said, I'm in trouble. I have to pay this money because it was $250,000. Okay, this is 2005. And I had just come out of, I still had my loan on my head, right? And here is $250,000. And I told my wife, I don't know how long it will take. If I keep doing the media work, it pays me 3,000 euros, which means अगर 5-6 साल तो लग जाएगा, इधर फंस जाऊंगा. But I was very clear I would not leave the country until I paid all these guys. So again, I was blessed. My wife said, do what it takes. So just to add for you girls, in the first 10 years of my marriage, me and my wife, so 10 years means 3,650 days, right? Me and my wife lived together for 580 days. That is why I could do what I did. I could have never reached where I reached today if my wife had not stood by me all along. All along. Not a single complaint as to why you're not doing.
She's a cardiac person.
She's a cardiothoracic surgeon.
She has a big heart.
नहीं फिर भी यार कितना ही बड़ा हार्ट हो 365 days if you're living only 500 days distant relationship very difficult to that. But again I think Indian wives, Indian girls, they are built or groomed that way. So anyway, I just thought I would make a mention. So I told my wife and she said whatever it takes, can't help it, right? And I remember I was thinking what to do, and somebody came and said there is a gentleman who wants to meet you. I said okay. This time it was like जो भी देगा भाई काम करवा लो पैसा दे दो. So went to him and he said, you know what, I've been wanting to launch a company and I think you are the guy. And I said, why me? He said, if you can bring Sonicum to Afghanistan.
Again?
No, Palibar.
Palibar.
So I think you can do any of that. I said, okay, what's the work? Don't tell me another actor. He said, see, I want to launch military contract here because US is doing so much work here and you are an army guy and you've done this, I think you can do it. His name was Hasib Akbari, Afghan Canadian. And I said, Dekho, I can only work if you pay me a salary. He said, I'll pay you a salary for 6 months. Okay, after that, we'll have a revenue share. Partnership will become profit sharing in profits. I said, वो तो पता नहीं कब होगा, but अभी तो 3,000 मिल जाए काम कर देता हूँ. So I started writing proposals for him. Again,
this is military contract.
Military contract. Third month, I won the first contract for about $300,000. US Army. Fourth month, we won for $500,000. By the end of 6 months, we already had $1 million contract, right? And Hasib called up and said, listen, how much debt you have? He said, 200,000 here. Obviously, we had divided all three ways to divide. My share was about $70,000 plus that. So he said, what if, because I was still doing journalism, right? He said, what if you had $1 million in your account and you could clear up? I said, listen, $1 million baat ki baat hai, pehle ye ho gaya. He said, but you have to leave journalism. Okay? Again, that choice. And I knew this, I had to make this call someday. I called up my wife again and said, you know what, I have to leave journalism. She said, what are you trying to do? I said, see, again, if I see what I'm seeing right now, this is the place I think we can do it. But I promise I'll come back to journalism. I don't know when, in what form, but I will come back to journalism. That was 2006 or 5. Okay, I came back to journalism 2019.
14 years. Yes, and all these 14 years, it was mostly military contracting.
Military contracting, but I used to always do this. All through this, whenever I would get a camera, he's already seen that I've got over 7-8 different cameras. Her generation ka camera I would buy, record. I did in between. I did a documentary on Hyderabad for UN. I would do a lot of shoots wherever I would go. I did a podcast when podcast was still not there. So just to be there, doing that. So passion, we are talking about, right? How you will find that way. This is what I want to do. So I got into military contracting. Fast forward all this. We ended up doing, by the time I finished, we did about $600 million contract in Afghanistan, military contract. And I was the biggest non-US citizen who was doing kind of $500 million worth contract with the US government. Here we had another challenge. So they were trying to kidnap me, but that evening, as luck would have it, my 2 guys went out and they got kidnapped. So 28 days I had to do hostess negotiation. If you go and search online, you will see, if you search for Naeem on the thing, Kabul, Naeem and kidnapping, you'll see his story there. So I did hostess negotiation for 28 days.
Got them out.
Both of them, like I said, we will not leave this place without having them with me. And I got them, flew them out, handed over Naeem to his parents and his family, and Guru to his family in Nepal. And guess what? Fast forward, when I decided to go to Iraq in 2016.
As if Afghanistan was not sufficient that you go to Iraq.
So in 2016, when I wanted to go to Iraq, so Naeem said, sir, I want to come with you. I said, did you ask your wife? Did you ask your parents? And he said, I've spoken to them, but my dad would like to talk to you. I said, fine. So he called up and he said, "Sab, agar aap leke ja rahe hain, to I know that you will get him back." I said, "No, don't say that." I said, "No, I know that you will do everything in your capacity." That is something that I always cherish. Very close to me. That two of my guys, I will not be able to disclose, but we did pay. But me and my partner, we said, whatever it is, we want our guys out safe. We want them, and I had to go and pick them at night at 2 o'clock because they had left them in the jungle somewhere, the desert. So this is where I also talk about crisis. When in crisis, what kind of leader you are, right? All my life there have been different crises, and in all those crises, one thing I know is, which I blow my trumpet loud and I tell my son this, that when you're hit with the crisis, you got to be the coolest person in the room. You cannot be freaking out, which I see many leaders do it, because they start shouting, the team starts losing. Because if something has gone wrong, it has gone wrong. If you shout, they will not think straight. They are expecting you to lead them. So whether it was the operation that I did in Afghanistan, in India, where I got the Sena Medal, whether it was the first bomb blast that I covered in Afghanistan, okay, first suicide bombing. I covered that thing and gave it to AP Associated Press for every minute $1,000. Right? Everybody was running away, and I was running in with my camera. Right? Because I knew this was the moment I had to get. Right? Whether it was when the whole Sonu Nigam thing happened, and whether it was when my two guys got kidnapped. I remember something happened. Something in me just went, shh. You have to think straight. And I remember that was the first. That was the 8th match. I think 4th match of IPL 2008 when he got kidnapped. We were all sitting like this. In that, we were having discussion, and we were in that particular project in Herat. 120 people were there. All of them sitting there. 40 of them Indians. We all sitting, and this guy comes in and says, "Sir, aapka banda kidnapped ho." Both guys get kidnapped by Taliban. And I remember for a moment everybody went shh. And I said, "Okay, मैं आके बात करता हूँ." So let us finish the discussion that we are supposed to happen. It's like I could have, "Kya ho gaya?" Where did these guys go? What happened? Because they expect leadership from you. Right? One quick ad. So what do you think I did after the failure of Sonu Nigam? I did another show. I got Jagjit Singh on my wife's birthday in Kabul on 17th March.
Did she also join?
Yeah.
She joined.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
So he performed in Kabul, and I didn't get a single penny for it, but just that redemption that I was able to complete a concert successfully from A to Z. So I went to Samir again.
Okay.
In Maryland. Sir, इस बार किसको करते हैं? किसको सोनू निगम को बुला? जगजीत सिंह को लिया. So we both did together, and I told him, "You are the front end. I will do everything required at the back end." So we did all that. I did all that, and finally Jagjit Singh happened, and he went back. And again, as I said, when Jagjit Singh performed, boarded his flight and left, I could feel that the same movement. Jab Allahabad mein I was doing that sword drill, I could feel here that redemption. Okay, redemption. I failed once, but second time, because it's all about, you may fail once, can you redo that again, right? So I did that, and perfect. You're gone. So anyway, fast forward, 2016. Finally, the contracts were coming to an end. US Army was about to go back. Me and my partner decided to look for other areas. In between, I went to South Sudan for 1 year. While this was all happening, I went to Haiti for 6 months. I did some UN contracts.
Haiti would be like Switzerland after South Sudan.
Yeah, after South Sudan, yes. So I was there for a while and traveled quite a bit. Got opportunity to travel as part of contracting, mostly as part of contracting. And then we went to Iraq. And in Iraq, currently we have a oil blending facility there. That's another story for another day, which started off and had it's right now going through that phase where all kind of ups and downs are going on. A lot of investment is stuck there, but nonetheless, it's still on. I'm not giving up on this. So 2014, I started from Ask Center. Yeah, it was startups, and so a friend of mine, when I was in San Jose visiting again, somebody said, "Go to India in 2014 because startup culture is going to boom there. So that's the right place to launch this." So I came here, I still remember 2014 to 2016 that I would go and say, ask mentor, mentoring for startup, and the entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs would say, why do I need mentoring? Maybe when I get funding, I'll ask for mentor. Do I have to pay you for it? So that was the awareness. But right at 2016, every person on LinkedIn was a mentor, right? Everyone who had never been an entrepreneur, everybody was a mentor. So I said, you know what, this place is not going to do what it's supposed to do. I took a step back. I said, I'll wait for a while for this whole thing to settle down. And in the meantime, I'll see what to do. So I spent 2016 to 2019 being part of the community,
Startup
community, being at the events, talking to people, kissing the buladia, talk earlier, and then be part of it. That is where first time I realized that the startups needed a platform to tell their story, right? And I went back, and it was that Eureka moment where I looked at it and said, what do I have? I have a journalism experience. I can invest. I don't need to look for seed fund. I'm prepared to start something new. And there is a need. And again, 1 week, I didn't go out asking anybody, I agree, all that needs to be done. But I'm more of a guy who goes with my own guts than actually go out and check out. Yes, that could be the reason why I failed in some of the things, but I don't care because I know how I will fix it up again. So, started MyStartupTv, and people were like, how do you compete with mainstream media? And I said, I'm not competing with mainstream media because I'm creating my own space. It is on the digital space, right? The web, and the first time somebody said, really what the validation to me was Samit of Sage One Investing. He handles about, I think, 6,000 crores of investment. And I was at Thai event and I was interviewing him. And I asked him at the end, what do you think of MyStartupTv? He said, you know what you're doing? I said, no, you're doing Bloomberg of India. Bloomberg is online, right? It's not a satellite channel. I said, there you go. Yeah. I got my, the thing I wanted, that's it. And I never looked back from it.
I explored a lot of stuff. We can't conclude this in that sense, but let's say I always come back to our primary audience. We are almost 100 times here, which is young at heart as well, just to capture that market as well. So if I know you have done this thinking back and changed stuff, but if you were to go back to when you were, let's say, 23, and you're right in college, you're still looking at options. If you have to redo something there, if you're why would you give yourself to a young Sunil Shetty and say, this is how you should do it? If you could time travel back, what would you tell Sunil Shetty then when he was 23?
Yeah, thought of that. I don't know what would I tell them, but 23. Because I think I did everything that 23 would do in army, right? Go crazy, go around, go chasing people.
Even let's say 21 then.
I wish I had met my wife early.
Oh, okay. But how would you?
By the way, she's from same school I was. Okay, she was the cream of the cream, top one, and I was from the bottom. And I ran into her by accident. So we were in the school parents, right? So because we are 86 batch, I met my wife after 86. I met her in. I had no connect as to what she was doing. I met her in 95, so almost after 10 years. Right after I was commissioned in the army and I was second lieutenant, I won this award and all. And another common friend from the same school said, Mona Lisa said, "Hey, you're here," and I know how she got my number. She said, "Let's meet at at Anita's place." I said, "Okay, where is she?" She said, "Here." I said, "Oh, okay." And we ended up there. Again, just to share with you guys, I met my wife at 10:30. 12:30, I told her that I'm marrying you, and I left.
That's real quick decision making.
12:30, I told her that I didn't even ask her whether she would be interested in me. I told her, you know what, I'll come and meet your dad, and I'm going to marry you. And I don't know what it was, but then I think so. If anything I could change, would be to meet my wife early.
You already met her.
I met at 95. That was 25. At 23, I would rather want to meet my wife at 23. Probably there will be more changes to my life.
I think that's really interesting. That was close it now. Thank you so much, Major and Sunil Shetty for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I took away all the time.